Welcome to the Business Performance Podcast, where we feature expert thought leaders and cover their best strategies, stories, and advice that you can use to successfully mature your own business performance. Now, here is your host, business coach Henry Schneider. Hello, everyone. This is Henry Schneider with the Business Performance Podcast, and today it's my pleasure to talk with Monte Wyatt, who's a Hall of Fame executive coach and also a best-selling author of Pulling Profits Out of a Hat, which I think is going to be really valuable here given the current situation with business being shut down. He's been an executive coach for about 16 years. So it's welcome to the podcast, Monte.
Thank you, Henry. Look forward to the conversation.
Wonderful. Okay, so I always like to start things off by having my guests give a little bit of background about their company, the types of customers they serve, and the services that you provide. So if you could briefly describe what you do, that'd be great.
You bet. Well, I define what I do as I bring clarity to how CEOs and their executive teams lead and manage their organization. And I do it in 4 words. The first word is awareness. I help them see things about themselves and their team, their opportunities that maybe they can't see. Second word is education. I bring proven tools in every aspect of business to help my clients. And the third word is implementation. We're all good at learning new things, but it's putting it into practice. And then the last word is discipline. I hold them accountable to the goals and the actions that they have identified. And as I kind of mentioned, my ideal client or my target customer that I help with is CEOs and executive teams in what I call the mid-market. So mid-market where they've got 50 to 500 employees.
Okay.
And they're really focused on growing, or maybe they've even hit a ceiling and they can't understand why they can't break through it.
So are you looking at like startups then, or are you going beyond that to?
I actually don't work with a lot of startups. I work that have built an organization and maybe they're growing, but they don't have good management of it, or they aren't aligned as a team, or maybe they've been in business for quite a while and they hit a ceiling and can't break through it.
Okay. All right. So as we kind of started talking about before, as the introductions, today's world, everything's changed. It's like fruit basket turnover, and everybody's going to have to restart here, hopefully soon. So it looks like that's going to have lots of new challenges, to bring things up, and people are going to be scrambling to get back to work. So how do you see what you can do to help in that situation?
You said a couple words that I want to really stress that I don't want people to do. I don't want people to scramble. And this is a time where we have to be very intentional. Yes, we don't know when or how the world is going to come back into place, but we as leaders and managers of businesses really need to be clear on where are we going to go and choose it. And one of the things that I've gotten very clear on here in the last few years is defining what a successful business is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a successful business to me is one that is sustainable. It's going to be here a long time. One that's predictable. We know how to anticipate where we're going. It's one that's stable. We've got consistency in employee retention. One that's consistent in how we do things. And lastly, it has an emotional connection. So sustainable, predictable, stable, consistent, and has an emotional connection. And so as we look at getting back to business, so to speak, we have to think about how are we building a business that we can have sustainability? How can we be able to adapt our business to what's going on in the marketplace, to the needs and the wants of the world? So we've got to be intentional with our discipline and our focus at this time.
Okay. Yeah, and something else I've been thinking about too is that it's kind of like what happened with 9/11, where they brought all the airplanes down. But to restart that, there's a certain sequence of operations. You can't, and today it's even worse. Some businesses can't start before some other businesses start. So it's not just a supply chain, but it's a chain of businesses to bring everything back up in some kind of coordinated fashion.
And this is the time where we have to be, I'm going to call it big picture thinkers. We have to be able to see the dominoes that are needing to happen or will happen. In the dominoes, I used to go to my grandmother's and we'd set up the dominoes and you'd push the first one and then they'd all fall down. We've got to be able to see and anticipate and understand what are the dominoes in our market, what are the dominoes in our industry, what are the dominoes that we want to create to help ensure that we are building a sustainable business. So we've got to think big picture.
Right. And when I think, on a small scale, like these mom and pop restaurants, all the restaurants have to shut down. Well, they just can't open up one day because all their supplies have either gone or they've been, destroyed. So they have to wait to get all their stuff coming in. And there may be a supply chain issue there too. And can they get back their staff? Because they may be doing something else now as well.
And that's why when you said the word scramble, I really want people to be anticipating. Now's the time where we've got to invest in our business. And hopefully here in the next few days, we're going to know, is it going to be early May? Is it going to be late May? Is it, when can we start to ease into the recovery? And I think that's what it's got to be. It's an ease into it. And we've got to plan for it. Just as you said, restaurants aren't going to be able to take 100 people a night. Restaurants aren't going to be able to get the supplies they need right now as fast as they want, as are most businesses out there. Yeah. And so we've got to really, really think how one decision in the short term, how it's going to affect the long term.
Yeah. Okay, so that kind of leads into my next topic, and I always try to get a feel from everybody I talk about, is the word quality. That's a pretty broad term, and it means different things to different people. So how do you define quality?
When somebody brings up the word quality, I ask them that same question. I said, what do you mean? Because quality is so vague, it doesn't tell us much. And so what do you want the customer to understand about you? Mm-hmm. If you want to have high quality, then let's dig into it. Is it consistency? Is it predictable? We need to help every one of us, instead of just saying quality, we need to get clear, because that's what's going to separate us from the competition, from other industries, whatever it might be. We've got to get more specific in what are the behaviors that we want to be known for. Mm-hmm. If you want to be on time, if you want to be proactive, if you want to be, bringing the information that your customers want, that's what we have to get clear with. So to me, it's defining, every company has to define what kind of quality, what kind of impression do you want your customers to be receiving from you, and get very specific to what those behaviors are.
And there's also the notion of perceived quality. You may think internally everything's great, but the way you present yourself, it looks bad. If you can't spell, if you got silly things that just people trigger off of, that shoots your whole reputation right there.
Everything that we do, say, look like, drive, you name it, leaves an impression. If you drive into a prospect's parking lot with a dirty vehicle or a rusty vehicle, what message is that sending? Yeah. If you said, as you said, if you send a message that doesn't spell people's names correctly or doesn't have other spelling correct, that leaves a message. If you can't think of the detail right in this communication, how are you going to fulfill your service correct? That's an unconscious thought that our clients do have.
Right. And as an example, I saw something yesterday on my phone, which was a little ad that said in stock, but stock was spelled S-T-O-C-H. I'm like, okay, who proofed that ad? So, okay. Now, what are one or two of the biggest misconceptions out there when it comes to quality and business performance that you've encountered?
A misconception: if we build it, they will come. Mm-hmm. And I think that people have to see value. They have to see a reason. They have to have an emotional connection to do something. We buy things on emotion and then we justify them with logic. And so no matter what the product is, how are we connecting to people emotionally?
Mhm.
And I don't care if it's a $100 product or a $100,000 product or service. You have to be able to touch people's emotion. It People are selling on price out there, absolutely, but when you bring a connection emotionally, in the relationship, in the product, in the service, in the value, people will pay more for it.
Mhm.
I guarantee everybody listening right here can think of a half a dozen things easily that you paid more for because of an emotional connection. And that is a big misconception, that people make all their decision on price. And then it's because people are lazy. We got to get our energy back to finding and showing the value.
Yeah, so you bring up an interesting point because this has always been the case. The low ball bid is the one that usually gets because you don't have that interaction. You receive an RFP, an RFI, an RFQ, and you type it all up. It's beautiful, and you ship it off, and then they pick the guy with the lowest bid.
I think RFPs are terrible things to be asking for. Number one, why do you want people to cut corners to get to a lowball price? Because that's what you're doing, is you're telling those that are applying for that RFP to find ways to cut corners so they can get the job. I would rather pay a little bit more so we can get a better product.
What are some of the common fears that you've encountered with people as they try to move their business along?
A big fear is, how do we get our team to buy in? And I think one thing that so many organizations need to learn how to do is to cast the direction of the company. And notice I didn't say the word vision. It's about, what is the direction? People want to know, where are we going and how am I a part of it?
Mm-hmm.
And they not only need to be a part of it, but let them give input to how they can influence it. More and more people really want to have part of their future direction. And that's a big fear, is, how do we get buy-in from our team? But you get buy-in by getting them engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get buy-in by telling them this is what you have to do. You get buy-in by saying, what do you think? How do you think we can get there? Where do you think we should go?
Yeah, and you bring up a good point about the vision. You see, companies are very proud of their vision statements. It's posted all over the place, and all it is wallpaper. People, yeah, that's real good, but how does? Okay, so what do I do about it?
Instead of a vision statement, and I'm doing this with my clients more and more, I really believe in a purpose statement.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we in business?
Yeah.
Not that vision statement of the purpose or vision statement of the company for the future. It's, why are we in business today?
Mm-hmm.
What gets me out of bed every day? What gets me into the office to do the absolute best that I can do? That should be our purpose as an organization. And if a company doesn't have a clear purpose, what's driving the team? Because it isn't that vision statement.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Yeah, that's the whole thing is, why are we in business? And it's not to make money. There's some kind of higher level thing you want. You want to provide products and services that improve the lifestyle or the health or something like that, and that will motivate people.
Absolutely. And that's a big piece of that emotional connection, is they've got to be a part of something bigger than them. And that's what people want.
Yeah. Okay, so how do you get people past those fears and actually do something meaningful?
Well, so many people, when they get to an executive management position, they think they have to have all the answers and give all the direction. A great leader empowers other people. A great leader doesn't have to do all the work. A great leader gets engagement. And so that's something that people work their whole career of doing and doing and doing, and now they get to this top level job, and their job isn't to do anymore. Their job is to inspire. Their job is to connect. Their job is to help their team feel good about where we're headed and why and how we can work together. So what I do as a first step is stop trying to do everything. Get your team engaged because they have better answers than you do. When you get your input from your team, you're going to have better things than you can even imagine.
Yeah.
And so that's a first step, is to get them to empower their team to share their inputs, to feel that they can give their insights and that they're heard.
Yes, that's growing and maturing the executive's capabilities because I guess, everybody kind of feels the same way. As you get up, you say, it's hard to delegate and say, I can do this. I know I can do a lot better than that if you give it off to Joe. He's going to take a much longer, right? So I want to retain that.
Absolutely. And, people want to have influence. People want to have others hear their ideas. Well, let's just give them a chance.
Yeah. Okay, so now could you share a story how you've helped a client of yours overcome these fears and succeed?
So I've got this client that I've been with for about 3 years. And when they first reached out to me, they asked, do I help with customer service? And I said, absolutely. And I said, I want to sit down with your executive team. So it was the CEO and his 5 direct reports. And this is a regional retailer. They have 75 locations. They have gotten there through mergers and acquisitions. And they said their number one problem was customer service. So when I sat down with them and asked them a number of questions, they certainly did have a customer service issue. But the bigger issue was their culture, their environment, and that instead of having one organization with 75 locations,
Uh-oh.
75 organizations, because they had no consistency, they had no connection between the 75 locations. So we stepped back and we created, I've got a clear process of how to create your core values and how to drive a culture into an organization. And it does not happen overnight. And 3 years later, we've made some huge impacts, and we still work on it every day because it's a never-ending process to develop culture.
Right.
And so we've spent time on purpose, like we just spoke about. We've spent time on core values. We've spent time on customer service standards. We've spent time on how are we hiring people? How are we developing people? It's about putting your people on a higher pedestal and helping develop them in every aspect. And so that has been a really great experience to see how small changes in the organization make a huge impact.
Okay, so if you could distill that down to like 25 words or less, what would you say was the moral of the story?
The moral of the story is that culture drives everything. And what I mean by culture drives everything is we've got to be clear on who we are and what do we want to be known for. And then we've got to get input from the team. We can't just go out and tell them this is the culture. We've got to create it. And so culture drives everything, and we lead people and we manage process.
Okay. So when you're working with your clients and trying to lead them down the garden path, what are some of the common pitfalls or mistakes that you have to keep them aware of so they don't trip on themselves?
Well, it's easy to go back into old habits.
Mhm.
Old habits are, well, people don't move as fast as I'd like them to, so I'm just going to tell them what to do. Well, that doesn't always get buy-in as well. When you tell everybody what to do, people want to have input. So we've got to watch out when things don't move as fast, that we let it still happen. And we can guide some things, but we can't go back to our old ways. And I think that's where we are in this new economy. When we come out of the coronavirus pandemic, business will not be the same for anyone. And we've got to get that buy-in, and we've got to plan it intentionally.
I'm also thinking that we're going to see much more remote working than we have because it's working now. People are working remotely, and we're going to have to see improvements in infrastructure, internet, go to meetings, and that sort of thing. And I guess 5G will help that, but not everybody has 5G yet.
Yeah, I think efficiencies, how we interact with our customers, our processes, financials, everything is going to be changed in this remote world. You know, medicine, telemedicine has gotten just a huge hit in the last month, how it's going so fast for people, how we interact and do meetings. We don't have to be in the same office. You know, we can be across the world and be on Zoom together. So there's just so many things that people are going to have to change because that's the way the world is going to want it to be.
Yeah, the other thing that's going along with this is that if you watch the daily briefings, there's a lot of data analysis, and they're not saying behind a deep learning, artificial intelligence, data mining that's going on to come up with what they're presenting to the American public. And I'm really happy to see that, and I think that's going to break through and probably, maybe accelerate the adoption of artificial intelligence and things.
Yeah, I technology is gonna be forced to make a big jump again, and I think that's, you know, you look back at history, and I've enforced that, and I think now we're going to be forced to do it again.
Mhm. All right, so could you spend a few minutes here talking about your backstory and how you went from sales selling crops to where you are today, and what defining moment flipped the switch for you?
You know, I'm a farm boy from Iowa. I grew up on a farm. My dad and my brother still farm, and I studied ag business at Iowa State and went to work for a chemical manufacturer and held roles of sales and sales training and sales management, marketing management, really every aspect of the business. But it was causing me to travel way too much. But that experience helped guide me in how the world needs leaders and managers. And so 16 years ago, as I left that corporate world, and I started helping organizations, mid-level CEOs and mid-market CEOs and their executive teams think differently on how they're energizing and leading their team and how they're creating a future for their business. And that was the turning point. I was just traveling so much that it's hard on a body, it's hard on a family, it's hard on a life. And so it's about, you know, I love how we talked about technology changes things. You can learn and know the season that you're in, so you're learning something for the next season that you're going towards, and that's really what I felt like I did for 14 years. I was in a season of learning, so I could get to the next season of helping others.
Mm. So how, to me, it's you being an executive coach, depending upon where your client base is, it's still going to involve traveling. So how were you able to reduce the amount of time you're on the road?
You know, I would say 90% of my time, I'm doing exactly what we're doing right here. I talk to people by phone or by Zoom. But I would say I've certainly had clients I've never met face to face physically, but I have clients that I still go visit 2, 3, 4 times a year, where I'm there for an extended amount of time, facilitating some more decisions, facilitating a process to help them think through the future of their business. So it certainly does happen, but not to the extent that it did.
Okay. So how are you able to convert from being in sales and marketing to starting as a consultant? What did you use to be able to start getting clients and move out into that direction?
You know, on day one, I had zero business, zero income, and so it was a transition of to sell from a physical product to selling an invisible product, and that's where we talked about having that emotional connection. Is you've got to sell dreams, you've got to sell a future of what we're going to create, and I help identify what's the boundaries to overcome, what's the dissatisfaction that they're experiencing, so we can get to that next future point.
Okay. Wonderful. There. So it's always curious how consultants are able to transition out. So in a similar vein, if you're thinking back on your entire life, can you share an experience that you had that still influences the way you approach business today?
You know, in the corporate experience that I had for 14 years, I was very challenged by how the internal management communicated. And that's one of the things that I really stress with my clients is how are we being proactive in our communication? How are we positioning things so people understand and really are bought into where we're headed and want to be a part of it. And so, I venture if we were to go ask every business out there, what's one of the biggest challenges, they're going to say communication. We never hear from so-and-so, or they are not clear enough, or they don't listen, or whatever it might be. Communication is something that every leader should be focused on. And that's a big impact to organizations, is how are we communicating, how are we being proactive, how clear. So absolutely, that's communication has to be a big one.
And I totally agree with you. I mean, and that's the main problem, is that people use terms and they throw them out without defining them, just like quality, for example, we talked about earlier. And then everybody's got a different idea what they're talking about, and they're going past each other.
Yeah, and as leaders, here's a phrase I love to use: true communication is the response you get. We have to own how other people are hearing us. Mm-hmm. It's not their fault if I wasn't clear enough. And so we've got to make sure that we're explaining things clearly, we're communicating clearly, and some people aren't very good at that. And that's why you have a team that you share things with, so you can build the great communication process.
Yeah, and the other thing that goes along with that is what I've heard years ago, and it's always true. When there are problems in the organization, it's the person at the top who has to deal with it. That person is who's actually caused that, because it's the lack of direction, lack of leadership, lack of communication to really get that handled properly.
One of the topics that I work with my clients on is that we need leadership and management today more than ever, and they are not the same. So someone may be a manager, but they may not be a good leader, or somebody may be a great leader and they're not a good manager. To me, leadership is about being passionate and focused and guiding your team to something. Management is making sure that we're competent and productive in our responsibilities. And so just because you're a manager does not mean you're a good leader. We have to work at it, and we have to do both.
So how do you get somebody, because they always say like leaders are not born, they're made. So how do you make a leader?
Number one is, are you willing to learn and grow? And learn and grow in your behavior. And I think that's a critical point, is you have to be conscious of your own behaviors. You have to be conscious in how other people respond to your behaviors. And you have to recognize that I have to adapt what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And if you're not willing to adapt, you're not going to make it very long. If you're not willing to sense how others are responding to you, you're not going to be very long in that process, or that position of that company.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to drive the company in a certain direction, and you got a lot of people that are unwilling to go with you. You have to maintain a positive attitude. This is what we're going to do, instead of getting negative and down on things.
Well, it's an attitude of how can we. There's always people are going to say, we can't do that. A leader has to have a view of, well, let's think about how we can make this work. How can we get to this result? What needs to occur? Ask your team the right questions. Again, a great leader doesn't have to have all the answers. A great leader asks the right questions to cause their team to learn and think differently. That's the difference.
Right. And that takes a lot of coaching and training to get somebody into that mindset.
Well, it takes commitment. It takes commitment. Do you really want that? And some people, they don't want it, so they aren't willing to change. If you really want to lose weight, you're going to eat differently. You're going to exercise. If you really want to be a leader, you've got to learn the right phrases. You've got to learn the right behaviors. So it is a choice, and some people aren't willing to make the choice.
All right. So now we talked about success. So what does success look like for Monte Wyatt?
Success to me is influencing other people to think and act differently. And that's my goal every single day. If I can help you see life in a new fashion, your team in a new fashion, your business in a new fashion, then I have been successful today. And I do that by asking the right questions, getting people to slow down, really see what's most important right now, and what are the steps to get there, and how does that step not just impact today, but how's it going to impact next week, next month, next year. And so when my clients make some change and it makes a huge impact, then I've been successful.
Yeah, and I think it's very difficult to get people to slow down and take a deep breath and say, let's focus on basics, not get all tied up in the details, but then always rabbit hole. Let's step back and take some time to reflect on things.
Yeah, reflection is how we learn. Why did that work? What made it so strong? Or why didn't that work this time? What don't we want to experience again? So that reflection is a powerful tool.
And the biggest one is when you have an unexpected success, something just, everything aligned perfectly, it's great, and you don't know how that happened, so you can't repeat it.
Hmm. Yeah. You've got to slow down and ask the question. What made this happen? What did we do? What can we do differently? It's not to find blame. That's where people get stuck, is they start to blame. This isn't about blame. This is to understand so we all can learn from it.
Yeah, yeah, and again, that's a challenge. You got to get people focused on, don't complain. Help me out here. What can we do better?
Right.
We know we got a problem, so let's talk about how we fix the problem.
Absolutely. Lead people, manage process, and people want to be led, and you got to manage process to get things done.
Okay, so I've been asking this one question. Now I have to reframe it because it's entirely different here with the COVID-19. But basically, small companies are going to have to come back. Is that they really can't offset the rising labor costs now with technology as easily they could in the past. So, what do you think can be done in that situation?
You know, we're going to have to. I was with a conversation with a client yesterday, and he was talking about, I need to find a new online tool to help me do this, this, and this. And I think, and my challenge to him was, you need to define what you want first versus what's out there,
Mhm.
and then see what you can go find. Most people, we have to, again, slow down and say, what is it that we really want or need in this situation? And then it's the question, how do we go get it? Because it may not be readily available today. We might have to combine 2 or 3 technologies to get to what we actually need. But you got to ask the question, what do we really need, and what would we like to have in this new technology to get us to a certain result? And what is that result?
Yeah, and that's a very good point. Plus, the other thing is if you do that knee-jerk reaction to go out and grab something, it may force you to change all your business processes. To, especially if it costs a whole lot of money. You spend all that big chunk of change. Now you don't want to waste it, so you've got to change what you do, and that's not compatible.
Absolutely right. And so that's why it's defining, what is it that we really want? What is it that we need to get the outcome that we're after?
Yeah. Okay. So now, from your perspective as a business owner and a coach and mentor, what are your top 3 process or business capability challenges or concerns?
It's one of my focuses right now is scaling around the world, and I'm training a lot of coaches around the world to duplicate the content, the process that I'm following, and really making a great impact with. And so it's my challenge is truly finding the right people. And I don't just want anybody to be on my team. I want the best to be on my team. And that's the powerful thing. And there's so many organizations that they're just hiring to hire. I think in today's world, it's going to give everyone a chance to reevaluate their current team and raise the bar.
Mhm.
And that's what it has to be. Let's raise the bar on our team, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now.
Okay. All right. So let's just talk about your book, Pulling Profits Out of a Hat. I think that's something we're going to really want to do now. So talk about a little bit about that for us.
Launched the book about a year ago, and the fun thing is, it's probably been about 10 years in the making. And the process that I follow through with my clients is and the content is what I put in the book. It's around 5 organizational disciplines. And every organization needs these 5 disciplines to help them grow, and they need to be there together. The 5 disciplines are strategy, business development, people, execution, and mission. And so in the book, we give examples. We tell how to create the disciplines in the organization. And so it's something that everyone on your team should read. And then it's not just making decisions in these areas, it's putting them into daily practice so they become organizational disciplines. Most businesses, their discipline is based on whoever the manager is or the leader is. No matter who is the leader or manager, you still need organizational disciplines, and that's what the content is in the book, and that's what creates profits coming out of a hat when they start working together.
Right. Yeah. Once you institutionalize those behaviors, then it doesn't matter who the managers are. If they move away, you put somebody else in. It takes on a life of its own, and it's hard
Absolutely.
for the manager to move things around.
Absolutely correct. So yeah, we've had a lot of fun with that. We've done a lot of blogs, a lot of webinars, a lot of great content, a lot of trainings and speaking engagements, and we achieved bestseller status on Wall Street Journal and USA Today. And that's been a fun experience doing that. So yeah, it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, that's great. That's a lot better than getting bestseller on Amazon, because you're only going to get 10 of your friends to buy the book.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So what does book sales look like? I mean, how many copies have you sold?
You know, we've probably sold around 30,000 books, which just is blowing me away in a short amount of time. And that's been the fun part, is helping people see, and it's an easy read. And the feedback I've gotten, it's understandable, it's easy to read, and hey, it makes sense to tie these things together, which we're not doing. And so I think that's been a big part of helping us make those sales, is because we have made it a simple process and we've made it a simple read, and it's now on audiobook and ebook. So no matter where you can get your books today, you can find Pulling Profits Out of a Hat.
Cool. All right. So that brings in the next topic. Speaking engagements. So and now all bets are off on that. So as you're forced into this type of situation where you don't have that same interaction with the audience. So how are you going to deal with that?
You know, it is about interaction, and it is about asking the right questions to get people to think. And so part of our process is to engage through questioning and getting people to share where they went and helping them bring clarity. And that's a big part of where we're at today, with everybody's working remotely, everybody is out of the office. We have to be all aligned and working towards the same thing. And so that's the powerful thing, is let's get aligned, let's keep focused, and let's communicate our way through it.
Okay. Now, when customers are thinking about using your services, what's the most important question you should be asking?
You know, I put it this way. I want people to start thinking in these 4 words right here: strategic thinking, execution, planning. There's a lot of businesses that do strategic planning out there, and absolutely you should, but I want you to implement what you put into place. And so if you're wanting to have greater implementation in your organization, that's what we should be talking about. And so many places, yep, we've got a strategic plan, it's over there on the shelf. No, we want to be implementing our plan, and that's the power that we bring.
Yeah. And that brings up another topic: business continuity. Most people get business continuity plans, but they never looked at. It didn't work.
Absolutely right.
Okay, so here's a good thought-provoking question. If you had to start your whole practice all over again from scratch, what would you do differently today, and what would you continue doing the same?
You know, I think we kind of mentioned it earlier, but I think every business today is in the technology world. And so something different that I do, I got to rethink technology and how it affects my interaction, how it affects my sales effort, how it affects everything that I do with my clients. So I think every business is in technology today, and we all have to answer that question. What would I keep doing? It's keep talking with people, keep building results, and sharing those results.
Okay. All right.
So that's power of direction.
Cool. Okay, so we're rapidly running out of time here, and I want to honor your day and overrun so much. So, how can people get in touch with you, Monty, if they want to learn more about you and what you offer?
A couple of places I'll send you. Number one is our website. It's called addzeroesnow.com, addzeroesnow.com. And you can reach me at Monte, Monte, at addzeroesnow.com. And connect with me on LinkedIn if you like. I send out posts every day of how to develop and grow your team, yourself, and your business. So connect with me on the website, or go out and get pulling profits out of a hat, and let's start finding that magic.
Okay, Monty, great. This has been a wonderful conversation. I've really enjoyed talking with you. So, thank you so much for your time today.
Henry, I appreciate it, and keep up the great work. And now's the time to be more focused and have discipline. So that's what we're about.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Business Performance Podcast with your business coach, Henry Schneider. For more episodes and business strategies, please visit welcome.ppqc.net/blog. That's www.welcome.ppqc.net/blog. And remember to subscribe so you can get the latest episodes. Thank you.